Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. Welcome if you've been here before, and welcome if you're new here. So today we're talking about how the law of attraction is rebranded victim blaming. So if you are someone who you have a really healthy relationship with the law of attraction, with you love it, if it works for you, any and all of that, this probably isn't the video for you. Okay, this is for people who maybe get a little ick or weird feelings, or like it is very much talked about in the mainstream. It's very normalized. It's common rhetoric around a lot of areas, and some of the ways I've seen it presented, I believe, are not very healthy or helpful. So I just wanted to break those down a little bit in this video today. So at its very basic level, law of attraction is basically this. It's an energetic universal law that states that like attracts like, right? And so therefore anything that comes to you must be in your energetic field is a match for you in some way, shape, or form. So some examples would be like, I really wanted this one job and then I got it, so I attracted it, right? I brought it to me, right? Another example would be like, I attracted this person into my life, this relationship, and sometimes, and it's like exactly what I wanted, so I manifested that, whatever. And then also, there's the darker sides to it, which I'm going to be discussing a little bit more in this video, but around like, okay, well, I attracted someone who was a perfect partner in every way, except they're already married. So that means I must have some type of resistance to commitment in my field. Just one small example, right? There's lots of examples of this. In my opinion, this is a very, very oversimplified version of the law of attraction. It's a very, very, it's really, in the West, we're very focused on individual responsibility and putting things a lot of on the individual level. And I think this is just another example of the way that this has been done, instead of looking at, some of these larger pieces that are at play here, instead of just like, this is the one thing that happened, here's the explanation with all of that. And so I say rebranded victim blaming. Again, we're going to get into it with that, but again, this is just a reminder. If you love the law of attraction, if it works great for you, maybe this video isn't for you. But so the law of attraction, again, just my personal journey with it. I feel it's been misused. It's been spread in harmful ways with all of that. And victim blaming, if you're not familiar with victim blaming, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's where you blame someone who was not responsible for what happened with the incident, that they had some role in it. So for example, this is really common in society to blame women or anyone of any gender, because we know people of all genders get sexually assaulted. But if you blame a woman for getting sexually assaulted, right? Like, what was she wearing? Why was she alone at night? Was she drunk? Like all, so when it's really no one can do anything to deserve to be sexually assaulted, all the onus is on that person. And there are some people who would say, with law of attraction stuff, that because you were sexually assaulted, there was something in you that attracted that, which if anyone has ever said that to you, if you're watching this video, if you've ever been sexually assaulted, I want to say that is not true at all. I'm so sorry someone ever said that to you. It's absolutely not true. You did nothing to deserve that. You do nothing to call that in, to make it your reality. I'm going to get into it a little bit, but I just want to make it very clear. You can do nothing to deserve to be sexually assaulted in any way, shape, or form, actually, but just so we're clear with that. Okay. So also so not just with assault, right? But some people talk about law of attraction and claim that, like, if you're harmed or abused, or even like, if you're living in a country where there's a natural disaster or some type of other disaster, right? Your house catches on fire, right? It was in your vibration in some way, shape, or form to attract it. Personally, I think this narrative is popular because it's kind of escapist. It allows people to not look at the realities of this world, not just, how much harm and abuse is normalized that people do to each other, but also just the fact that we live in a realm where we're not in control as much as people want to think we are. There is a power greater than us. There are things that happen that we cannot prevent no matter what we do. So I think those two things are going at odds here, right? The one is people don't want to submit to a higher power. They don't want to submit to the fact that we're not in control of every single thing that happens at all times, but we are not. And also, just again, the idea of it's easier to blame the person that's going on, mixed in with misogyny, with classism, with racism, with all the other isms, right? Like us, it's a perfect storm of all these things that is what makes this rhetoric so popular, right? And also, if we can blame the person that this happened to, then we don't have to be uncomfortable. We don't have to look at the things we can do to change society. We don't have to look at the world for what it is. Like, a lot of this stuff isn't super fun or exciting or like, woo, so glad all this is happening, right? There are a lot of things in this world that happen that are painful, that are sad, that are upsetting, to say the least, right? And so if we can just blame everything on someone attracting something to their life, right? And it's like, oh, well, I don't have to do any work because this is just what happened. And so again, I just want to be very clear. You are not responsible for someone else's bad, unhealthy, harmful behavior. Okay. Sometimes we have a role in something, like arguing with someone, calling someone a name, whatever, but something extreme like abuse, or assault or anything like this, you do not have a role in that. There's nothing you could do to deserve to get sexually assaulted, anything like that. Obviously, again, there are things we do in the society to protect ourselves, to try to minimize the risk, but at the end of the day, someone else's bad behavior, unhealthy behavior, is a result of them and their actions, not a result of, me attracting it or drawing it in or calling it in or whatever. Okay, so there are things where this is, again, where for me, the law of attraction falls short, where it puts the blame on certain people's, just saying someone is responsible for someone else's behavior, which they're totally not. And then another example could be, like, well, you're just not visualizing it hard enough, or you don't want it bad enough, or you're not saying your affirmations enough, right? If you don't get, let's say, like a job you want, or you don't get into a certain school you want, or a program, or, you aren't manifesting a specific person, which is like a whole nother video about that, right? But if you are, there can be a lot of blaming of like, you're not working hard enough to make this thing happen in your life, when again, these things are out of our control, right? There's a lot of things in this world that a lot of people say they, did or for themselves, but actually they have things up on other people. They have resource, they have connections, they have access, they have certain things that other people don't have. And so not saying that, it's not important it is important to work on your goals, to get clear about what you want, to put yourself out there to try and make things happen, but you are not personally responsible for every single thing that happens or doesn't happen in your life. Okay, which sometimes when I see law of attraction being talked about, it can be that extreme way. So there's a lot of things going on with that. And the other thing too, so basically, if you look at it in this very simplified way with law of attraction, right, people say like, well, just only visualize what you want, only focus on what you want, only allow these things, whatever, which is like people who have differing mental health situations. Sometimes we can't control our thoughts. Sometimes, we have responses to things. If we have PTSD, if we have other certain type of mental health experiences, right? It's like punishing someone for having a low vibrational thought, for being depressed, for, having PTSD from something, for having like replaying memories, right? Those things are not your fault, and you are not blocking good things from coming into your life because you have to deal with things that are out of your control. So I want to say that. And it's very healthy, in my opinion, to visualize or think about a bad or unideal outcome so you can prepare that it doesn't happen, right? It's important to not hyper focus on like, the worst possible thing of every single thing all the time, right? But it's also, in my opinion, not very healthy to get to the point where you're just like, nothing bad is ever going to happen, so I don't have to prepare for anything, right? It is important to say like, okay, if I'm driving somewhere and like I get a flat tire, do I know who to call? Can I know where to go? Do I have enough money to pay for it, right? Like there is a level of being prepared for these things that, again, I think can get confused with these lines where people are saying like, oh, well, if you visualize it or if you think about it, then you instantly attract it, or you make it happen, right? And even in terms of safety, like, okay, well, this doesn't feel safe to me, or if this happens or whatever, like, what am I going to do to protect myself, to look out for myself, to do something different, right? So sometimes like visualizing a bad outcome, it just means you're being prepared. It just means you're thinking about things. It just means you're trying to make the best you can of a situation, instead of like, again, being completely ignoring everything that goes on. So that's also something to think about with law of attraction, and why, again, Like, it's not your fault. There are things that are out of our control. And I don't believe in blaming and carrying blame and shame for that, right? Because there's the blame for it. And then on top of that, there's the shame with that. Some things, again, are not our responsibility, are not our fault. We do have personal responsibility in certain things and awareness to ourselves, but like, it's not to the point that we are responsible for someone else's bad behavior. Sometimes we have to say no and set a boundary and stop it, but you didn't do anything to attract that, right? So if we go back to the example of, oh, well, I like this person and it was so great and I thought we were going to date, but then I find out they're married. What did I do to attract them? You didn't attract them. They're just like a horrible person. Okay. Not like, but like they're clearly going through something if they are emotionally engaging with someone, even if they're married to someone. Right. Like that's something to look at. And even this example of, I always attract these people who, are emotionally unavailable, let's say. Okay, well, you can attract all types of people, but it's typically looking at what are the ones I'm responding to. And that's looking at, okay, what are my patterns that feel familiar or what I want to look at instead of, like you're probably attracting all types of people. You're just focused on these ones. And again, attracting, right? This is just, you're engaging with people all day long and you're meeting people all the time. It's just which ones are you focused on and are you responding to based on your programming and your beliefs about yourself. So that's where we want to look at instead of just like, oh no, this person entered my field, so that means something's wrong with me. Okay. And then it's also the people who have more money and access and class privilege, they interact with less strangers than people who don't have as much access, right? Or they interact with people who are more like of service to them than just like people maybe who are, more equal on their class level. So they might be interacting with people who just want to serve them and just kind to them and just whatever, because it's more of their job versus the average person who has to interact with more people just because that's the way their life is set up. So they might feel like they're attracting more, like less kind interactions or whatever, but it's just, again, looking at the circumstances of life and who has access to who and what's going on with all of these things. Okay, so there's a lot of things going on here, and it's really easy and it's really lazy and it's really harmful to simplify law of attraction to explain every single thing that's going on in your life. And like I said, I also think it puts too much power on the individual, from my personal beliefs, to believe that we are powerful enough to control everyone and everything around us, that we are 100% responsible for our reality, right? Because if you think about it, if you ask people who really believe in law of attraction, like, oh, so you think this thing, this horrible thing, or this person who turned out to be not the best, or you had a falling out with, like, they attracted you. It's so much about like, I attracted all this stuff into my life, but it's like, well, how often do those people say that unideal things that happen to them, like they attracted them to that? And that typically is left out of the conversation. So again, it's very self-centered. It's very escapist. It's really individualistic. It's just a lot of things going on that I don't think are very helpful to perpetuate. I think there's other ways to talk about this and to explain things. Again, I really do believe in like having goals and visions and like, this is what I want to work towards, or this is what I see myself doing. Like all of that is really beautiful and powerful, and it's empowering to do that, but it can be a very thin line to walk. And I don't agree with a lot of this mainstream rhetoric of like, you are solely responsible for every single thing that has ever happened in your life, which is the message. Some of this stuff is what I'm seeing around. And another point I want to make about this is that I see law of attraction being used as a fear-mongering technique and as a way to sell things to people, right? So a lot of these things are started off as like, I can guarantee that you will never have to deal with whatever again if you take my program, and I help you change the way you think, and then these things never happen ever again, right? So a lot of these conversations and ways that law of attraction is being marketed, again, okay, it's very escapist, it's very overpromisey, it's very pay this money and you'll get this result, which again, it's very unethical to guarantee outcomes to people, because we cannot guarantee outcomes. We can encourage people to take action to build healthy self-esteem, to set boundaries, to make different decisions in their life, and take personal responsibility, but guaranteeing an outcome that is based on things that we can't control, very unethical. So just the way the law of attraction is used by a lot of these marketing people, by social media, by, like, oh, you saw this message, it was meant for you, it attracted to you. It's like, oh, it's the algorithm, you know. And again, I do believe in God does drop things in our lap sometimes. Some things are very clearly, you know, shown at the right way, exact time for us. But, you know, when it is connected to this thing of like, oh, it was meant for you, so now, you know, I'll teach you, you'll never attract a harmful person ever again. No one can guarantee that. That's not how life works. And also, you can have the most high self-esteem in the world and still end up in unhealthy situations. You can still meet people who end up not being healthy the more you get to know them. You know, there's people who are friends with people for a really long time, and then suddenly something changes and they're just not a person for you anymore. So we don't know situations in the beginning. Things change. And so anyone who's trying to use this as a fear-mongering marketing thing of saying, if you do this, then I can guarantee this thing will be healed and you'll never have to deal with it again, right? That is not healthy. It's not ethical. I'm personally against it. I think it's more about encouraging people to develop healthy self-esteem, a healthy toolkit around what to do when these things happen, how to say no to certain things, you know, recognizing what are my limits and boundaries, what feels good to me, what doesn't, instead of just saying, I promise you'll never have to deal with this ever again if you just think this certain way or ignore this problem or pretend like this thing isn't happening. Okay. So I think, you know, it is more mature and healthy to look at things that are going on and choosing to deal with them in a healthy, mature adult way instead of this thing of like, oh, well, I'll never have to deal with this again if I just do this, this, and this. We don't know what life is going to hand us. We don't know how things are going to turn out. And we are not more powerful than the forces that be and things that happen beyond our control. Or how many affirmations you say, you know, how many vision boards you make, right? We are not more powerful than the powers that be and things that are out of our control. And the billions of other people on this planet, we're all, it's all together. Okay. You are not more powerful than anyone else. It just comes down to your self-esteem, your vision of yourself, and your boundaries. If you have felt the ick from the law of attraction, you are not alone. And I hope this video clarified some things for you around it. These have just been my thoughts about it. Believe in whatever you want. If you love the law of attraction, God bless, go ahead, go forth, you know, do all of that. But just for me personally, like life is full of hardship and challenges and delays and blocks and denials. And that is one way we grow on the soul level, not saying like I condone it or, you know, all this stuff, but that is just part of our reality on earth. And sometimes, you know, people think they can bypass that. And again, like connecting to this victim blaming is a way that that is encouraged instead of encouraging people to look at the ways that you know, these exploitative systems of oppression are harming people instead of just blaming the actual individuals. Okay, that's everything I have for you. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. If you ever want any more information about me, all that is linked below. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.